I'm attempting to climb the highest peak in every European country. On my project, called Just the Tip, there are 50 peaks. I've been doing this project for the last 2.5 years now. I just did an ultra marathon from one peak to another country's peak to reach 25 out of 50. Since we're at halfway, I wanted to do this little Q&A, this fun video to let you know how things are going. First, we'll talk about the most popular questions when it comes to the peak project. And then we'll do a rapid fire session where we'll go through the good, the bad, and the unexpected. This is an idea that came from my Patreon, so thank you so much. And the third question, more about the logistics, how I make my money, how I do what I do, essentially. Let's go. Let's break down the project itself and also why it's called Just the Tip. I have 50 peaks on my project, and there's a really good reason for that. Normally, there's only 49. There are actually several other really amazing people who are out doing the same project now, and lots of people who came before us who also did it. People from Ireland, Sweden, Slovenia, Australia, the US. It is so cool to be one among many. The reason my project has 50 is because there are some peaks and mountains that I probably won't even be able to attempt because of the political situations. I'm gonna leave it at that because it's a whole can of worms and I don't really feel like opening it. So instead, what I've done is I've replaced and added on a few peaks. The name of the project is Just the Tip, and it comes from the saying, just the tip of the iceberg. And the reason this is so important and why I chose it is because there's so much more to this journey than just ticking off a bunch of peaks. Sometimes I do just literally go to a country to climb its peak, but oftentimes what happens is I get to explore, experience, and share a culture and get to know people in these countries. So it also fits in nicely as to why I decided to do this project. Before I started this project, I was going through a cycle of anxiety and depression. I was at my lowest point. I was not myself, and I needed something kickstart my journey to being myself again. And something that is so integral into who I am is travel. Me being me, I love challenges, so it needed to combine both things. So I Googled Crown Jewels of Europe and I figured, I'm gonna try. Let's get into some juicy peak project related questions. First one, what peak is next? Slovakia. It's just under 3,000 meters and I need to get a guide for it because legally that's how you do it. And I'll be going to a friend's wedding, so I thought, why not climb a couple peaks in the high Tatras? You smashed it. My question is, which of the Europe peaks concerns you the most? And maybe which are you looking forward to the most? And this question actually comes from my friend Chris, Train to Summit. He's got his own YouTube channel and a really cool project. I highly recommend you check it out because what he's doing is amazing. He's going from the sea all the way up to the summit of the highest mountain on every continent and back down to sea. His first major mountain, Aconcagua, is already up on his channel, so go check it out. Which of the peaks concerns you most? If you asked me this question a year ago, my answer would be completely different. Last year, it would be Grossglockner in Austria and Liechtenstein's Peak. Now I'm not so concerned about them because I've kind of gained a bit more experience and I feel more confident in the areas that I'm kind of lacking. So now is actually Dufourspitze. It's the highest in Switzerland because it is a high peak and it's more technical than Mont Blanc. Now the good thing is about it being technical is those are things that can be learned. Also, another thing that's just a little bit concerning in general is how the weather has been changing and how some of these peaks are becoming more challenging because of that. So for example, Mont Blanc, I haven't done it yet because I haven't found a good weather window when I have the money to do it. So I don't know when it's going to be possible because I would need a guide for this because I don't have the technical abilities. But I do have my sights set on a major 4,000 meter peak, whether it's Mont Blanc or maybe Dufourspitze this year. Which one are you looking forward to the most? So even though Dufourspice is one that I'm pretty concerned about, it's also one I'm really excited about because I like the idea of the challenge. Also, there's a few other things that I'm really excited about. Bosnia's is in a rainforest. Oh, that would be so epic. And I want to do the 24-hour peak challenge in Wales. And I'd love to do Northern Ireland by biking across Ireland. That would be cool. What's been the hardest so far? That question in itself is hard to answer because almost every peak has had some kind of obstacle, whether it's logistics, whether physical, mental, like there's always some kind of hurdle that I have to overcome. If we look at it physically and how my body felt, I would say the hardest was Kebnekaise in Sweden because it was a total of 50 kilometers. And just because my hiking boots got wet because there was so much snow, it was like knee-deep snow when we were near the peaks, that it was just soaked. And the next day, the very last one when I had to go back to, I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, Nikoluktuka, it was the most painful walk back because I had that backpack on and it felt like I was getting stabbed in the foot. If I had better boots and maybe some gaiters, it probably wouldn't have been an issue. What's been your favorite? I have so many that are so close to my heart. It's hard to say. Get back to me at the end of the 50 and I'll give you a top 5. How about that? Do you plan to do another continent? But don't tell anyone. It's just between you and me. I need to finish this first. I can't get too excited. But what I can tell you is when we get to 100,000 subscribers, I'm going to try to climb the highest peak in Greenland. And Greenland is an interesting one because it's part of the Kingdom of Denmark, but it's not actually geographically in Europe. So hit that subscribe button. We got our iced coffee, so now it's time for rapid fire. The good, the bad, and the unexpected. 3, 2, 1, go. Peak 1, Monaco. That we finally found it. That it was so boring. That Monaco is so tiny that it's like 2 kilometers across. Peak 2, Cyprus. That it's a snowy paradise, or it can be. Public transit. The incredible and amazing kindness of the locals. I hitchhiked my way through a snowstorm and I got saved by a beautiful local family and they took me out to lunch. Malta, peak 3. How beautifully spicy the weather was coming straight from Cyprus where it was cold in the mountains that it took me forever to find this tiny hill. It was literally a pile of dirt that they put cardamom in their coffee. So delicious. Peak 4, Ireland. All of the incredible people on the trail. The poor sleep that I had from the loud people at night. How the sheep had blue on their wool. Peak 5, Croatia. All of the really cool people that I met before and after the trail. I tried some intense alcohol, did a little shot, and then eventually got a ride back into town from Marco. The insane amount of heat and the horseflies at the top. I could not sit down or stop moving. When I was staying in the mountain hut all by myself and I thought that someone was going to murder me with an axe. Peak 6, Slovenia. Doing it with Bella and my partner Juan Pablo. The anxiety attack I had coming down. Doing my first Via Ferrata. Peak 7, Germany. The insane landscapes. I did not expect this from Germany. I saw a freaking waterfall. I did not expect that. All of the logistics trying to get to the peak because we went during the G7. Getting pulled over in our van as we were getting the heck out of Germany and meeting a bunch of police officers who scoped out our van but ended up becoming YouTube subscribers. Peak 8, Andorra. Meeting Damien, my marathon running friend. He is insane. He's currently doing this project where he's running a marathon in every single country. The bad, when I thought Bella was going to get shot by a couple of hunters, flying down the mountain, jumping around like a bunny rabbit, and then rolling my ankle and being out for several weeks. Peak 9, Portugal, in the Azores, the Jurassic Park landscape. almost not making it to the base because of taxi situations. That it's so heavily regulated that they give you a GPS system so that they can track you. So safety is the utmost importance there. Peak 10, attempted Liechtenstein but failed. Trying something, not succeeding, and not beating myself up after it. Having to deal with a monstrous ego from somebody that we thought was a friend but really wasn't. How crazy the weather was and how much snow there was. Peak 10, Czechia. The burger after the hike. How many tourists there were and how boring it was. Van life in Czechia as a whole. Peak 11, Norway. Trying something new, getting on Norwegian skis, which are very different from these Canadian skis that I'm used to. Falling on my ass like 50 times coming down the glacier. Hitchhiking all the way up and all the way back down from some really cool people and hearing their stories. Peak 12, Sweden. 3 days in remote nature with totally different landscapes. The insane trench foot that I had on the 3rd day. The mountain hut, such a vibe. Peak 13, Greece. Scrambling up to the top. Having my hotel cancel at the last minute. The food in this little town was... Peak 14, Bulgaria. The views from the top were unlike anything I've seen in that part of the world. The sheer amount of tourists and people on the trail, how fast I did it. Peak 15, Denmark. The beautiful rainbow. It was a hill. It was small. Having somebody pull over and offer me a ride. Peak 16, Scotland. And the highest in the UK. It's got to be the views. The trail we did was pretty easy, so I would rather do the harder one next time. How the nearby community was so severely affected by mental health. There are lots of people going and climbing it to support talking about mental health and seeking help. Peak 17, mainland Spain. The sunrise. Not being with Bella. How it looked like the moon or Mars. Peak 18, Hungary. It's gotta be the Hungarian food. How small the peak is and how easy it was. The cherry beer I had. Oh, I love sour beer. Peak 19, how good I felt at altitude. How I couldn't figure out the permit situation. Ridiculously high rental car prices. Peak 20, Lithuania. The mushroom soup. The creepy bus station. All of the street art. Peak 21, Latvia. Seeing a fox. Having to drive by myself for like 1,000 kilometers. Finding a Latvian Stonehenge in the middle of nowhere. Peak 22, Estonia. Seeing a moose. Having to drive in the dark with astigmatism while it's pouring rain. Having discovercars.com reach out to me and ask if I would like to review their product. And so getting a credit that really helps with the Peak project. They're amazing. Peak 23, Finland. Doing the snowmobile trip in honor of my grandpa and doing it with my partner, Juan Pablo. That I couldn't cross-country ski it, but maybe next time. How hard snowmobiling is. Peak 24, Belgium. The really cool 10-kilometer stretch to St. Vith in Wallonia. Wow. How ridiculously expensive it was to get a 16-kilometer taxi to the base. 60 euros. Seeing an old bridge with bouldering formations. Peak 25, finishing my first ever ultra marathon and running the longest I've ever run in my life. Having sore joints. Public transit was free for me. So cool. We've come such a long way and it's incredible, this journey. Makes me think there's so many amazing landscapes in Europe and so many amazing people. Now we're moving away from the Peak project and just onto some other questions. We all know that you secretly want to move to Scandinavia. We won't tell anyone. Where in Scandinavia would you want to live? What I think would be ideal is in Sweden, on the never eat soggy wieners, on the western side, above Gothenburg, close to the border with Norway, so that I could have my own little tree house somewhere and be in a country that I really love and that really resonates with me, but also be really close to Norway to have access to the mountains, but make sure that I'm close enough to a major airport. That would be perfect. And yes, I would love for it to be a tree house or like a little tiny home. I think that would be just epic. What do you do for a living? How do you make money traveling when you started? I essentially have 2 full-time jobs. 1, I work for a tech company, and 2 is all of this content creation and YouTube channel. So filming and producing videos, but also working with brands and creating other content with the idea of helping other people live their adventures more effectively. So for example, I made an online video course to help people to move abroad. That's geared towards people who've never done it before. They have tons of questions, but they don't want to do all of the research and they kind of want to take the guesswork out of it. So then I made that course for those people. And then last year I wrote my first guidebook on the highest peak in Ireland, Cairn Tool. And currently I'm working on a map and guide for Spain. So I've always got another project. And another part of this is also Patreon. So I create exclusive behind the scenes content for patrons, and it's a really cool community. It goes directly back into the YouTube, back into creating more content and the Peak Project. How did you make money traveling when you started? So I did this system of stay in one spot, work really hard, save and be frugal, and then just go travel. And it was really perfect because at the beginning of my 10 years of traveling, I was an English teacher. So it allowed me to go to places like Colombia, Vietnam, Portugal. And then after I gained some experience teaching English, then I shifted more into being a digital nomad, and I was able to travel and have my private classes anywhere. That system worked for me until it didn't. And I had to make a change, but it's a really cool way to work and travel. This one is deep. How do you do what you do? Like, what was your first step? I want out of what feels like a rat race. I'm sure it's not all sunshine and rainbows all the time, but it looks like you're enjoying life to the fullest. My family often makes the joke that when I have something in between my eyebrows, I'm going to do everything that I can to achieve it. I don't think there's a single answer, but I think if there's something that you want bad enough, that you dream about doing or accomplishing, I truly do believe there is always a way to achieve it. Sometimes it might just be a lack of knowledge. Sometimes you might need to problem solve a little bit. And sometimes you might need to save up and take the plunge. But whatever your situation is, just know that it is possible. Often, the issue is not believing in yourself. You can make it happen. If I can, shit, anybody can. Oh my god, I almost forgot. Okay, so I've got pins, patches, and stickers. This was actually a gift from my patrons, so I really want to send out 5 little packages to 5 of you. Comment below on this video one of these emojis. If you do this, then I will put your name into a draw and 5 people will be selected, and I will contact you and send you a little package. 72 hours after this video is posted, that will be the cutoff time, and I'll specify this in a comment below. So keep your eyes peeled for any responses to your comments, or if I have you on Instagram, and I could be in touch with one of you. It's kind of crazy to like think back on the last 2.5 years. And the amount of lessons learned, amazing people met, delicious coffee had, and incredible yummy food tasted. Wow, the world is inspiring. Europe is cool. I'm pretty stoked that there's still the other half of the project to go. And we got some big ass mountains coming. I didn't purposely leave the bigger ones for last. It more just comes down to finances. Slowly saving up and getting more collaborations and working on these streams of income. So bit by bit, we'll get there. Thank you so much for watching and for always being legends. And I'm hoping to meet some of you and do some peaks with you. Keep your eyes and ears out for that to happen. Things are gonna be planned. We're gonna make this happen. We're gonna climb some peaks together. That's my idea. Anyways, so what can you expect next? The Iceland series. Oh yeah, I'm super excited to share it with you. Until then, have a lovely day and most importantly, happy adventures. Ciao.